Hello everyone and welcome to Until the End of Time. My name is Werner and this is going to be Arkham news for April 20th, 2020. So I wanted to do a news segment when I started this channel, but with the COVID and everything, there's not really that much news. That being said, I still want to do it because there's a couple of things that I think are important to share. The goal for this series is going to be to make sure that there's a kind of central overview of everything that's happening on live streams, on podcasts, on announcement articles, everywhere when there's new packs coming out, just to make sure that you don't have to go looking through a dozen podcasts just to make sure you have all the newest things, because FFG does occasionally preview things that aren't just on their website. So that's what this is going to be. And I'm also just going to recap a lot of stuff because, of course, with the COVID, a bunch of things have been delayed. And that's why I wanted to make this, to make sure that we still know everything that's going on. So there's going to be 4 topics. The Investigator starter decks, you've probably already seen a bunch of that because of the videos I've been making, but just in case, a quick once over. Return to the Forgotten Age, Barkham Horror, you know you love it, and the Innsmouth Conspiracy, which I have the most interesting stuff to say about, I think. Also, I have a straw poll, link will be in the description below. Please answer it. I'm trying to figure out what else I could be doing with this channel other than just the videos I've been making. You can name any number of answers, select any number of them, and I just look at what seems to be popular. I don't guarantee I will be making the things that are most popular all the time, but I just want to see, what are you interested in? So the Investigator starter decks are 5 decks, 1 for each class. Each comes with an Investigator is unique to that deck, which means they won't be showing up in the deluxe boxes or anything else anytime soon. They might get replacements down the line or something like that, but they won't be just showing up in another campaign. Each comes with a ready-made deck, including a new basic weakness. Keep in mind that, of course, basic weaknesses are usually determined randomly, but these will just be able to add it to the card pool. But yeah, they do all come with one random basic weakness. They are 60 card packs. They all include plenty of XP options as well. And all are roughly 80% new cards, 20% returning cards, reprints, which I think is a pretty good number. I think a lot of people said around 32, 33 new cards. Of course, that's a little difficult to say right now because we don't know a lot of exactly how that math works. And even Matt, when they mentioned that number, wasn't quite sure. So let's take that with a grain of salt, but there should be around 30-ish new cards per pack. Each pack costs the same as a Mythos pack, so that should be around 15 to 18 bucks depending on how much shipping is. And all of the packs combined should be around the cost of should contain around a cycle worth of new cards, which, given the cost of 5 packs, is actually pretty cheap. Of course, there's no scenarios, so that's the hit you're taking. What are these designed for? Well, they're obviously designed for new players, right? They come with a ready-made deck and plenty of upgrades, which is awesome. So this solves one of the problems that we've had in the community for a little while now, which is that when new people would come in, they would ask, what should I buy? What should I buy? And almost always the correct answer was you should buy Dunwich first, and then buy Carcosa, and then buy the rest. Simply because of deck building reasons, right? It's very hard to make solid decks using, you're missing Dunwich and you're missing Carcosa. Carcosa a little bit less, but Dunwich definitely, you're going to notice that. These packs all contain lots and lots of very good basic cards, like the Mystic deck with Jacqueline in it has tons of new spells. So basically, if you have one of these, you can play through a campaign, which means that now, after you buy a core set, you can buy however many of these you have players, and whatever campaign you want, and you don't have to start with Dunwich, which is great. It just means that there are more starting options for new players. Awesome. Also, for more experienced players, there's the option of buying all of these, but it also just expands your card pool very rapidly, right? Each of these is basically, or combined, these are basically a cycle, which means that we basically get 2 cycles worth of playing cards in, a year's time. I think this is a move by FFG, by Matt, by Jeremy also, to make sure that we have a lot of card options. We can really start deck building very aggressively, because one of the things that Arkham has always had is that because each pack contains a scenario in addition to the player cards, you end up with a slower expanding card pool compared to something like Netrunner or something like Game of Thrones that other LCGs FFG has made. Like, this is a injection of lots of new cards into the pool to kind of compensate for that. And I think for experienced players, this is going to be really exciting because there's lots of cards in there that fit into existing decks, make existing decks stronger, open up whole new playstyles, and all these investigators so far actually have seemed pretty powerful. So keep an eye on this one. Buy them if you have the money, and if you're currently squirreling away funds during the COVID, you don't have anything to buy, make sure to save a little bit of for these, right, when they come out. I know I am. Okay, moving along, Return to the Forgotten Age. This is pretty much what you would expect. I think there's big box, bunch of new scenarios, bunch of new player cards that are upgrades or changes to the cards from from actual Forgotten Age, and some dividers. The usual things we've come to expect from a Return to box. The main reason I wanted to actually talk about this real quick is we know or can deduce a bunch of the player cards based on the images. So we know Guardians are getting a upgraded Survival Knife level 2 because this was actually in the announcement article. We don't actually know the other Guardian card yet. Seekers are getting a Truth from Fiction level 2. I'm personally guessing Truth from Fiction level 2, but we don't know. It's actually in the fan-out image that was on the previous slide. And they're probably getting an Ancient Stones variant because they have been getting the unidentified, untranslated upgrades every box. No idea what that's going to do, but it probably will be another variant. Mystics are getting an upgraded Mystic Relay. I believe it is going to be Mystic Relay level 2, based on, we've seen Rite of Seeking level 2, and we've seen, what's the other spell we saw? I believe there was another spell. It might have been Suggestion or something. Either way, we're getting no, it was the Transmutation. Either way, we're probably getting an intermediate upgrade of Mystic Relay. So that's going to be exciting. If it is level 2, some of the off-class Mystics might be able to use it. And we're getting a new Chthonian Stone, which was in the fan-out card as well. I'm very excited what that's going to be because, in my experience, Chthonian Stone hasn't really been that effective outside of dedicated seal decks. It hasn't seen that much play. So curious what a couple of XP pips are going to do to that card. And then for Survivor, we actually know both cards completely. We have a new On Your Own, which is level 3, but it's kind of level 6 because it's an exceptional card, and it is the permanent one that is, again, in the announcement article. And then we're getting an Alter Fate level 1, which is the same as the original Alter Fate, but not fast. And it costs 3 resources instead of 1. We know this because it was in one of the French or Spanish fanouts. Specifically, this one also doesn't have a wild icon, but has an agility and willpower icon instead. Which is pretty cool. I think Alter Fate is definitely a card that a lot of people have seen as being pretty powerful. The fact that it is fast and does only cost 1 resource is often, 2 of the traits that are very good about it. But this could also just be a stepping stone for Survivor decks looking to upgrade into level 3 later. Also, this is one that Preston can take, which is very important because he might get stuck with something like a Frozen in Fear, and this is a great way for him to get rid of it without having to pass the willpower 3 test. And speaking of rogues, we don't know any of the rogue cards. We have no idea. None of them. I mean, I could be speculating, but I don't want to because they would be mostly baseless speculation. But I'm very excited to see what rogue cards we're getting an upgrade to. I mean, I doubt we'll be getting a different Lola Santiago, but, we'll be excited if we did. Okay, as for scenario cards, well, more of the same. What a surprise, it's more snakes. One thing that I do want to point out is that I actually thought this Snake Pit, which was in the announcement article, was a card for the Untamed Wilds, the first scenario. However, looking at the icon again, I realize it's a card for the second scenario, Doom of the Edsley. Which is interesting because after realizing that, I went to look up the location connections and realized that there is no location in that scenario that actually connects to the Black Thief symbol. Which leads me to believe this might be one of many replacement locations we'll be getting in Doom of the Edsley, which could be very exciting. That's definitely a scenario that I think has a lot of tricky elements to it. So, a change to that would be cool. Vengeful Serpent also, again, from the article, but very cool new way to handle vengeance. Basically, playing with that victory display in a negative way, right? It keeps coming back, but it doesn't actually give you vengeance, which is interesting. Finally, we do know that we're getting a new Harbinger, though that was on, I believe, an Asmodee preview or something. This Harbinger will have higher evade, lower fight, until you have dealt it half of its hit points worth of damage, at which point those will flip. It will have a higher fight and lower evade, which is an interesting change to this boss fight, because a lot of people, I think, either decided, well, we're just going to kill the snake or we're just going to evade it. Well, this might not be a strategy you can use in Return to TFA, so that's exciting. Otherwise, I believe it did have the same amount of hit points and was basically the same otherwise. Moving on to something a little bit more silly, Barkham Horror. The meddling of Nyarlathotep, which is a bit of a tongue twister. This is the last year's April Fool's joke that somehow turned into a real scenario. It's going to feature a whole bunch of cards you can't actually use in the real game, though people have been saying they might try the Skids O'Drool, which is the Skids O'Toole dog card, because it seemed kind of sweet. In general, this seems super silly and super fun, and I really hope we'll see it soon. Going by the fact that it's one of these bigger blisters, it's probably going to be a similarly priced to things like Murder to Excelsior Hotel. It's going to be kind of standalone scenario prices. As far as I'm aware, you can use normal Arkham cards in Barkham, but you can't use Barkham cards, as you can see on the Dog Monocle, Barkham deck only, so you can only use those cards in Barkham Horror. Though I am excited to see potentially more Barkham, because they let that one open, right? It's Barkham deck only, not Meddling of Nyarlathotep only. And it's going to feature cards like Squirrel and Dog Monocle. So, I'm happy. I want to play this. I think it's super silly. I think it's super fun. And I just wanted to have this one not be forgotten in all the madness that's going on right now. And speaking of madness, let's talk about the big one, the Innsmouth conspiracy. So this is going to be the next cycle. I'm assuming most of you will be aware of that. I'm hoping most of you will know that we're getting a preview stream pretty soon. If not, I wanted to remind you, April 30th is going to be a preview stream. We have no idea what that's going to look like. I hope it's still happening, because we haven't heard that it's been cancelled, and no news is good news, right? But I mean, with COVID going on, I can't imagine it will be the same as normal. But yeah, we're going to see new cards probably. I'm expecting it to be similar to the Dream Eaters preview they did a long while ago, which featured cards like Tony and Patrice and stuff like that. So hopefully some new cards. April 30th. Make sure to check in around then. I'll be sure to give a new shout out. But there's also actually a couple other things that I wanted to talk about. All right, it's beginning to look a lot like Fishman, because of course it is Innsmouth. It's beginning to look a lot like Fishman. But let's talk about what Matt has said, because Matt went on the Mythos Busters podcast a little bit while ago, talking about the end of Dream Eaters and then about Innsmouth. And according to him, as well as according to the announcement stuff, it's supposedly the weirdest campaign yet, which is saying something, because we've played through Carcosa and we've played through Dream Eaters and we played through Circle Undone, and some of those had really weird elements to it. So excited to see what that looked like. Maybe more to the point, Matt thinks we'll have to play through several times to grasp all the stories. According to Matt, and this is, you might have to listen to the podcast, it's going to be in the description below. There's going to be elements of the story that you aren't going to really realize are there until maybe after you've played through it once, and then you look back at certain elements and go, wait, but if that happened, then why did that happen? And then you can go back, check that out, and suddenly the whole story takes on a different light, or elements are changed, and then you maybe play through the third time and you see different things yet again. So if that's the case, if they manage to pull that off, wow, that would be amazing, because this is starting to sound a lot like Carcosa, only bigger and more weird, more complicated, more interwoven stories and stuff. And I think Carcosa is still probably maybe the best story this campaign or this game has to offer. So it's got me really excited for Innsmouth. Basically, I think this is something I'm very excited about. I hope they'll be able to nail it, because it would be awesome if they did. In addition, on that same podcast, he mentioned that there's going to be something they haven't done since the core set. New tokens. Now, he was quick to clarify, he doesn't mean necessarily new Chaos tokens. It could be new Chaos tokens, it doesn't have to be. Now, that normally would mean, okay, we're getting a new token, we have no idea what it is, whatever. But because we're going to be able to assume that whatever token's in there isn't something they can just do with the normal game mechanics, right? It's going to cost them additional costs to put those tokens in their boxes, and the boxes presumably sell for the same amount. So there's a cost-benefit ratio here. Presumably those tokens are going to do something that they haven't done before. And the first thing that I actually thought of is corruption or something like that, because that's been a bit of a theme in Innsmouth sometimes. I'm not the biggest on Lovecraft lore, so please correct me if that's wrong. But the reason why I think it might not be corruption, however, is because we've seen mechanics like corruption in various other scenarios, right? In Point of No Return, we had the whole reality warping thing, which was just damage tokens on the scenario card. In the Dark Side of the Moon, we saw that Doom token suddenly turned into Alarm. So they've been able to play with that before. That being said, if corruption takes on a much bigger, much more noticeable effect in this campaign, say your allies get corrupted, say your investigator gets corrupted, say non-player characters or maybe enemies get corrupted and that changes them somehow, then that maybe requires some kind of new token. Another thing it could be is skill tokens. Let's say you have an effect that increases your investigator stat with some kind of token, and then maybe you could take the token off or something that isn't directly tied to an asset. Or you could have an investigator whose entire skill set is based on tokens, right? They maybe have a stat line of 1, 1, 1, 1, but then you get some number of skill tokens to distribute among those stats however you want. Ultimately, we don't know, right? This is all speculation on my part. Presumably, it's not going to be something very straightforward, because otherwise they could have probably just reused the tokens they already had. That being said, maybe it is. Maybe it's just a new Chaos token. We don't know how many new tokens, so let's be excited and see what comes up the 30th. Investigators, well, we're going to Innsmouth, so the only investigators that are really linked to that would be Silas and maybe Amanda Sharp. We already have seen Silas before in the books, which maybe links into another question a lot of people have, which is Innsmouth going to have 6 investigators? Dunwich Legacy had 5, Carcosa had 6, TFA had 5, Circle Undone had 6, and then Dream Eaters had 5. Now there's a pattern there that maybe isn't intentional at all, right? FFG might go, oh yeah, I guess we did that, but that wasn't really intentional. That being said, if it is intentional, then, or maybe even if it isn't intentional, but they just want to put Silas in this box, they maybe go, well, a lot of people already have Silas, right? And they have him with the replacements, but they don't want to, they might not get excited about a new survivor that is the same survivor they've already played several times. In that case, they might put in Silas in the same way that they did Marie in Circle Undone, where they have Silas and a second survivor. If they do that, no idea if they will do that, but it would be awesome. So yeah, Amanda, we don't know much about her. She's a student, I believe, so she would probably be a seeker of some sorts. Could be, we'll have to see. I believe that's everything I have to say about those two. The other investigator rather, that might belong in Innsmouth is Abigail Foreman. But we just saw her in Weaver of the Cosmos, which is in which she's an ally, so it might not show up there. She might not show up as an investigator quite that soon. One last mention on investigators is Trish Scarborough. Now, we have no idea if Trish is going to go in Innsmouth, but one thing that a lot of people have pointed out is that the rogue seeker combination of classes isn't something we've seen a lot at all, right? We've seen Mandy, Tony, and Finn who've been able to combine those classes a bit. I guess Jenny too, and the other guy, Rex, if you want to be really specific, but ultimately those are two classes that barely ever overlap, and part of that is also because they're really powerful, so people would like to combine them. And one investigator from the Arkham files that would make a very good combination there is Trish Scarborough. She was recently on the art for Fallout, and it wouldn't be the first time that a card from a previous cycle previews a upcoming investigator, because cards like Inspiring Presence in Carcosa previewed the Leo Anderson in The Forgotten Age. So this is perhaps stretching a bit, but it is a combination of classes people would like to see. It is an investigator that's quite popular, or a character rather that's quite popular, so maybe. And we've seen her on art recently, so FFG definitely hasn't forgotten about her. And one of the things also, and this is starting to get into like real big speculation, so please don't assume this is known. Assume this is a speculation. Trish historically has always had a flexible set of skills, or rather was one of her themes, right? She could change her skill set however she needed. So that leads into the tokens thing, because say she does have that 1/1/1 stat line with those tokens, right? It could mean that you could one turn have her high agility, low combat and intellect because she just needs to evade something, and then the turn after that you put a couple points more in combat because you want to punch the enemy, you just evade it, and then you put an intellect as well, you can investigate something, right? There's this idea of a investigator who maybe uses skill tokens to modify her stat line. It would be really cool. Obviously we have no idea If we don't, I'm sure somebody will make a custom investigator. But yeah, so this is maybe a bit of a wishful thinking, but it would be really cool. And I believe that brings me to the end of the video. Thank you for watching. Please stay safe. It's some crazy days out there, so please, just stay safe and stay healthy. There's lots of Arkham excitement to come, so don't make your own excitement. Don't get too crazy. Reminder to please fill out the straw poll. Feel free to comment with any questions you have, and I'll be seeing you again until the end of time.